Hi, my name is Julie Green. I haven't done a podcast for a while, but I'm going to do one. I've noticed lately there are a lot of websites out there that actually encourage bullying. And I'm going to talk about that right now. There seem to be an awful lot of them. If you Google the subject, toxic people, you will come up with web page after web page after web page about toxic people. And you can even see professional psychologists and therapists talking about toxic people. What are toxic people? Well, first of all, this is a completely meaningless term. There are no toxic people. Are there people who are radioactive? No. I don't think so, unless they worked in some lab and put some radioactive dust on themselves, and maybe they need to go into some quarantine or something, or they have some dangerous disease. But I think for the most part we don't have such dangerous diseases around. That I don't think that's what they're talking about. The toxicity they're talking about is completely non-existent. They aren't really toxic. What they're talking about is something that is actually name-calling. What they're talking about is actually a euphemism for, I think you're actually mentally ill, or maybe, I don't like you, and I don't really know why, so I'm going to call you toxic. Or, I'm uncomfortable with this relationship because I see something in you that's just like me, and I don't like that part of me, so I'm going to end this relationship and call you toxic because I don't want to admit that you're just like me. So, that said, I am going to not encourage people not to call other people toxic, and please don't patron those websites that encourage calling people toxic. So those websites, I went to all of them actually, and of course many of them are trying to sell something, or they're trying to sell some therapist's services, and some of them say that toxic people are, let's see, toxic. Some of them say toxic people are some of them actually do put psychiatric labels on these toxic people. They are personality disordered, or they are borderlines, or they are depressives, or they are negative, or compulsive liars, addicts, all this kind of words, drama queens, this kind of words. And there are all kinds of advice on how to deal with these. And the opposite is clever people, wise people, smart people, people who get ahead in life. So there's this dichotomy between those great, wonderful, ahead people who always get ahead in life, and these terrible, negative people that you're supposed to avoid on all costs. Now what happens? A person is labeled toxic, which is meaningless, and then it is spread around, so-and-so is toxic. Why? Because you don't like that person, so you say, this person is toxic. And then everybody starts saying this person is toxic, and soon enough, this person who is labeled toxic, which is meaningless, gets bullied. So that's the toxicity right there. That's the negativity, is the fact that this meaningless label gets spread around, and then that person is labeled toxic and bullied. because nobody talks to that person anymore. It's a form of social othering. And it does spread. What happens when no one speaks to you anymore? You feel rotten. You feel terrible. You don't even know why. People are calling you toxic and negative and walking away and making faces. Next thing you know, you might wonder why you've been fired from work, or your social group isn't speaking to you anymore. You go into another social group and you're kind of smarting from the wounds and dusting off the bad ashes from the other group, and then this second group sees you that you're hurting from the other group, and of course they're going to call you negative. And then what happens? Well, they start calling you negative, and then you go home and you feel rotten. You get into a fight with your spouse, and it just goes on and perpetuates itself, kind of like the ripple effect. This is how social othering begets social othering begets social othering, and it spreads and spreads and spreads, and it can just envelop you. Let's stop the cycle. Don't call a person toxic. And if you hear one person targeted as a toxic person, stop it. Invite that person to coffee and sit down with that person. You'll be surprised. You'll be delighted. There's nothing wrong with the person, and you'll find that out. Deliberately friend people who are lonely. Sit down with that person. Spend time with that person. Talk to the person. Be with that person. Sit with the person and listen. No, they're not drama queens. You know, people act a certain way for a reason. And you might find that you're really not sorry after all. That person turns out to be a really good person, and that you're not sorry. And as soon as you reach out, other people will start reaching out too. You can end that cycle of negativity. And you might even save a life. Thank you.